Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, let's bring in Breitbart economist and finance editor John Carney and Fox News contributor and retired NYPD Inspector Paul Mauro. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for being with us. John, to you first. The shot we didn't play was Governor Hochul trying to reassure New Yorkers that this is really just Donald Trump. If you're not Donald Trump, you're fine. Are people going to be at ease? Are business owners going to be at ease in New York, or do you think you're going to see an exodus?
Absolutely, they won't be at ease. What this is telling you is if you are an enemy of the political establishment, they will use the judicial system to come after you. This was a political prosecution. The judgment was a joke. The legal theory behind it was absurd, and it is going to chase businesses out of New York. More than even people who are here trying to get out, which will be difficult, it means that if you are starting a business, there's no way you want to start it in New York because you see that the judicial system has become a mockery and you don't want to go anywhere near it.
I've heard so many people over the weekend, Paul, talk about the fraud. Well, one, Letitia James decided that she was going to take down Trump. And then she used the executive law to go after him. And the law, this is not the common law fraud where you have to show losses and prove intent. You literally, you don't have to show intent, and you don't have to even allege losses based on this. And so if there was even the whiff of actual fraud, she would have charged it that way.
That's right. And, you know, one of the tells involved here is that none of the other agencies, Alvin Bragg's office walked away from this. Nobody went at this thing criminally. Why? Because a criminal case, were it ever to go to trial, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Which is generally perceived to be someplace between 95% and 100% surety that you got the right person and that they committed the crime. In a civil case, it's only preponderance of the evidence. What is that? 51%. So it was brought as a civil case quite cognizantly. Furthermore, none of the federal agencies went near this thing. Typically in a case like this, big money like this, the federal agencies come piling on. They charge mail fraud. They charge wire fraud. All of these sort of amorphous crimes that they can go in so that they can dip in. Next thing you know, the feds have the case. They sue. Big bank cases, they do that. They get piles of money. It's one of the ways they keep their gears flowing. They didn't want anything to do with this thing. It's a completely novel theory. Going back 70 years, nobody can find a precedent for it. And what's really upsetting, and also a tell, is that the award's going to be overturned. It's preposterous and completely out of proportion. It's unconstitutional. But the judge configured it up front here so that even when it gets overturned down the road, it doesn't matter because he's done everything he can to hamstring Donald Trump now going into the election. Can't work.
And the way the law was written is you don't get a jury trial, so you're stuck with a liberal judge. I mean, at least if you had 12 jurors or 6 jurors, you have a shot at getting one of them.
He wouldn't have a shot at a New York jury, though. I mean, that's the problem.
Better than what
this shows, though, is that there's no way Donald Trump can get a fair trial in New York. I mean, he would lose in front of a jury in a minute.
So as Donald Trump's legal battles continue to dominate the news cycle, Nikki Haley saying she would pardon Trump if he was convicted of a federal crime. Check this out.
I would pardon Donald Trump because I think it's important for the country to move on. We've got to leave the negativity and the baggage behind. I don't want this country divided any further. I don't think it's in the best interest for America to have an 80-year-old president sitting in jail and having everybody upset about it. I think this would be the time that we would need to move forward and get this out of the way.
So, John, she was asked that question by one of the participants in the town hall. But does anybody really care what Nikki Haley says? She's not going to be the president.
No, I mean, this is like asking, should Captain Kirk pardon Donald Trump, right? It's a fictional character that's not, not true. Yes, the fictional Haley, Nikki Haley would pardon Donald Trump. Great, it's fantastic. She does get at a serious issue, though, which is we need to put an end to this, political warfare through the judicial system. And if we don't, it is going to be a real challenge to try to run a democracy the way we have for 200 years.
And Sean mentioned that we're not going to play it for you, the Kathy Hochul piece of sound from the governor, trying to say, oh, this is just about Trump. Yeah. This isn't, we won't abuse the law and target anyone else. This is just Trump related. And I'll go back to something that Victor Davis Hanson said a while ago, these ideologues think they're morally superior and smarter than anybody else, and they're entitled to do things the other people don't do. It's like in the Soviet Union, when if you're part of the nomenclatura and you join the party, you're exempt. If you're not, well, you're on your own. And everybody thinks the danger is past, and then you get what you wanted, but no. And then they will eventually, unless you join, they will come after you.
Yeah, it's
and
very
it's
ends justifies the means, right? I mean, which is a Soviet maxim. And, you know, the distinction here, I would argue, is that the right thinks the left is wrong. The left thinks that the right is evil. And that justifies any mechanism that you can employ to keep them from getting any sort of power. And Donald Trump, obviously, is the great orange bogeyman that stands for all of that. And this is just you know, what this is in terms of being chilling is less chilling to the business community. Because as John says, you know, if you hear it's going to be tough to get out. What it's chilling is political dissent. Because if you have the temerity to say something that's against Tish James or against Alvin Bragg or against the governor or against the party in general, the big party, just like in the Soviet Union, well, you know what? They're not going to be averse to coming down on you with a hammer. And it's very clear that they'll do that. It won't end with Donald Trump. It does need to end. But you know what? This guy O'Leary, who was not familiar to me, but, you know, he's calling New York a loser state. He's right, and he has the guts to say it. This town is losing business. Quality of life is going down the tubes. We better wake up.
We have a housing shortage in New York. We need more development in New York City. Going after a big developer, a man who actually literally helped build New York City. You go skating in Central Park with your family, you're going skating on a rink that Donald Trump built. We're going after the developers during a housing shortage. That's insane, and we're going to regret it.
So we all agree this needs to stop. You got to bring your country together. But I love the law. I was a prosecutor for 10 years. Love the jury process. But it won't stop until Democrats have to live under the same laws that they've set up for Republicans. And once they do, they'll figure out this is a really bad idea. But until then, I think this is going to continue. And if we think we can just put it in the back seat and it's going to go away, Paul, I don't think it's going to go away.
No, I don't think so either. Remember something, Sean. Iraq had a constitution. Syria had a constitution. Some of the worst regimes in the world have a constitution. A constitution is paper. At the end of the day, it comes down to the goodwill and the professionalism of the people and the ethics of the people who have to administer that. Just because we have a constitution that's been the envy of the world is no guarantor that all of this stuff's going to work.
New York State ranks 49th in the Tax Foundation's state business tax climate. 49th in part because of the individual tax regime here in the state, and also property taxes are just god-awful. But then also you throw in the crime, particularly in New York City, that the rank-and-file workers have to deal with. Why any company stays here is beyond my imagination.
A big problem they have is a lot of business law actually is done under New York law. If you look at big contracts, they very often say, big loan agreements, they say, you know, will be decided under New York law. This decision puts that in danger, because now if you're a businessman saying, okay, which state should we choose as the state, the forum that will litigate things? You say, let's not do it in New York. They put, you know, a $350 million fine on Donald Trump. Let's make sure we go to a state that's sane. You know, Elon Musk just moved his business from Delaware to Texas. I think we're going to see states try to find friendlier forums for business than New York.
100%. John Carney, Paul Mauro, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
And stop putting your employees in harm's way.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? All right.